How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings and welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States, live from Jacksonville, Florida, broadcasting from WOKV, my station down here in Duval County. I am down here. They do their own curathon for their child cancer fund down here. And let me just tell you, I'm happy to do these for stations, and this one in particular, I didn't know anything about it the first time I did it. And, you know, I do the one for my flagship station, WSB in Atlanta, and they cover research for blood disorders and cancer, and they pay for certain staff, and the money raised is millions of dollars. This child cancer fund for Nimor Cancer Center down here, it covers mortgages for families who they've had to give up their jobs to take care of their kids who are battling cancer. It covers their car payments. It covers the gas to get them to the hospital. It covers their groceries when they're there. It covers taking care of the families if a child dies and covering the funeral costs. It's a remarkable fund they have down here in Northeast Florida, and I'm happy to be here to help them. But as a result, I am yet again broadcasting live from a hospital, so no phone calls today. It's just me, and I got to start with Gavin Newsom because it's very interesting to me that he put out an ad yesterday, and it was very clearly a consultant-based ad highlighting redistricting efforts in California, trying to build the case for the people of California to go along with him. Now, this tells me a couple of things. First of all, he had supposedly a member of the Independent Redistricting Commission on stage with him attacking Donald Trump, which means not exactly an independent redistricting commission. And then... and by the way, we know their independent redistricting commission is not independent and not actually doing nonpartisan gerrymandering, in large part because the number of independents who are on the board are also Democrats and partisans, but Republicans get, 45 to 47% of the vote in California, and they hardly have any seats out there. It's clearly not a nonpartisan redistricting commission, despite what they claim. In the people who voted to put this redistricting commission in place aren't particularly happy with it, and therein lies the problem for Gavin Newsom. When Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California, he, frustrated with the Democrats in redistricting, was able to push an independent redistricting commission. The Democrats got their claws on it and made it less than independent, which has been a source of frustration. But Arnold, I guess I should say, was able to get the Constitution of California amended. There was a statewide referendum. So Gavin Newsom's going to have to get the people of California to change the Constitution to allow this sort of redistricting commission. And you know, his argument is actually, the redistricting commission handles decennial redistricting. We're doing mid-decade redistricting. That's different from decennial redistricting. Now, maybe he can get the left-wing judges in California to go along with that, but I'm not necessarily sure he's going to be able to even make that argument, and it could go to federal court, and it would be an interesting fight to see. But still, that'll be a court fight. Those court fights don't go quick, do they? I mean, Texas, this is part of the problem with Texas as well, is if we're really honest about it, Texas is going to have a problem as well because Texas is still bound by the Voting Rights Act. Texas still has to draw certain districts in certain ways to preserve majority-minority districts. The Supreme Court has not gotten rid of that yet. They're going to have to get rid of it, so Texas is going to have a court fight. The Texas Democrats, though, have said they're going to surrender. They're going to come home. What they say they want now is they want the adjournment of the present session, which means they won't get arrested when they come back. So they want the adjournment of the present session, which Governor Abbott says he will do on Friday, and which I guess is today, actually. How about that? And they'll come home, and then he can fire up a new special session, and they will participate. They will vote no. They know it will pass, but with California now in the game, they're okay with it. Well, now here's the problem. California is going to go to court. Texas is going to go to court. Texas has better odds, I suspect, than California, given California's constitution. But with left-wing judges, you never know. But then that might just get you guys in Missouri in on the game. And you guys in Ohio, it might get you in on the game. And thus far, there's been some resistance. In Indiana, you guys there, well, your legislature and governor have not wanted to do mid-decade redistricting. It's probably going to get you in the game as well. That might inspire Florida to give one more stab at redistricting. Florida's got pretty good lines already, but they could, Governor DeSantis has said, make a few additional changes. So now you got possibly Florida, although it's the least likely one. You've got Indiana, which isn't bound by Voting Rights Act. You've got Ohio, not bound by the Voting Rights Act. You've got Missouri, not bound by the Voting Rights Act. You've got Texas, which is but can still wreak havoc. 5 in Texas, a couple of that's going to offset anything California possibly does. So now you got New York coming in, and New York says they're going to do it. Well, New York probably can't do very much given its Supreme Court decisions there, the state Supreme Court, not the federal Supreme Court. They're going to try. New Jersey might be able to, although they're in the middle of a gubernatorial election. It's going to be difficult for them to be able to get anything done, and there doesn't seem to be a big appetite there in New Jersey. What are you going to do, get Illinois to get rid of those 3 Republicans? They've done a very good job to make sure. Maryland looked at doing it. The governor of Maryland says they can't figure out a way to redistrict to get rid of the 1 Republican they have. So Gavin Newsom's picking this fight. But again, let's go back to right now. Gavin Newsom doesn't have legislation. Gavin Newsom doesn't have a plan. Gavin Newsom doesn't have a constitutional amendment. What Gavin Newsom does is he has an ad campaign paid for by I guess his campaign fund or something. He's got some outside consultants, and he's also, by the way, got 60+% of the people of California opposed to doing redistricting right now. He has nothing. This is for show. This is Gavin Newsom trying to find an end to 2028 to run for president. It is for show. And I don't know that the voters will reward Gavin Newsom for doing what he's doing, given that it's all for show. And he's very good at doing things for show. But he is, by the way, what he is doing, because Texas is going to redistrict, it seems. I got to be honest with you. I kind of thought that Texas was going through the motions to placate the president and not really wanting to do it, lest they expanding at California and others. But as Gavin Newsom has been talking up what he's going to do and the like, they might as well go for it. And it looks like at this point they're serious. They are going to go for it in Texas. They should go for it, by the way, in Texas. I really did think that Greg Abbott and the legislature there, that they were doing it to kind of head pat Donald Trump, but they weren't serious, and they knew the Democrats, when they stayed out of state, were going to drag things out and make it hard to do. Yeah, they're serious. They're going to get it done. Gavin Newsom says they're going to get it done. Texas doesn't have to amend its constitution. California does. It's going to be an interesting fight. Again, though, this is worth noting. Democrats aren't really serious about nonpartisan redistricting anywhere. And most of their states have been gerrymandered so strictly, with the blessing of the National Press Corps, you should pay attention to that they don't have any more districts they can draw in any of these states. They don't have districts in most of these states that they can carve up to add any other Democrats. Texas does. A lot of southern states do. And if the Voting Rights Act were to go away, it would free up southern Republican states to get rid of a lot of majority-minority districts. There's already now Ralph Norman in South Carolina. He's running for governor. He wants to get rid of Jim Clyburn's district. Jim Clyburn is the one Democrat in the South Carolina legislature. He wants to get rid of him, carve up his district. I think the Supreme Court is headed towards getting rid of these racially gerrymandered districts. They got rid of affirmative action in government. They got rid of affirmative action in private hiring. John Roberts says the way to stop discriminating is to stop discriminating. Majority minority districts are expressly designed to discriminate. Get rid of them. I think Donald Trump has started a fight the Democrats can't win. This is not an 80-20 issue, unlike crime in D.C. or illegal immigration, but this is an issue most voters don't care about. Most voters are deeply cynical on both sides of the aisle of this. Most voters think both Republicans and Democrats do this sort of stuff, so they're kind of indifferent to it. So you're not going to have the passions. You'll have the passions of the base, but not the passions of the middle. And that, I think, matters. That, I think, you're not going to see that this massive, you'll see the rent-a-mob from the left, because you always see the rent-a-mob from the left. But you're not going to see the middle class in an uproar over redistricting among partisans, because the middle class doesn't particularly care about redistricting among the partisans. So Trump's picked a fight where the people who care will get involved. Most people don't care. And it's when Republicans can put more points on the board for than Democrats generally. Now, I will tell you, in all honesty, I've talked to some Republicans who are a little bit concerned that the Democrats may be able to have a slight advantage in this. Most Republican consultants, though, that I've talked to who've run the numbers on this in all the states say it's kind of impossible because of the nature of Democratic redistricting. Like Massachusetts is gerrymandered by design to keep Republicans from getting a seat. Illinois is gerrymandered to get the maximum possible number of Democrats elected. Maryland is the same way. So there just aren't a lot of options for the Democrats to be able to combat the Republicans on this issue. I'll take it. In all honesty, I'll take it. I think the GOP may need to do this. Now, here's the outline of the show today. The president is meeting with Putin in Alaska. Lavrov showed up with a CCCP shirt, that is the Soviet Union. This is everything in diplomacy's a message. Lavrov coming in with a CCCP shirt against Marco Rubio, his counterpart of the Americans whose family fled Soviet Cuba. They're sending a message there. And it's going to happen about 3:30 when they take up their meeting. The Russians are there now. The president's on his way there. But the meeting, the press conference is going to be after I'm done today. So I'm going to wait until the third hour as we get closer to it to really bring you the play-by-play of everything happening in Alaska today between Putin and Donald Trump. So in the meantime, I'm going to take a quick time out here, and when we come back, there's a lot of other stuff that we got to talk about today that's in the news, including housing and an interesting piece of all things from David Brooks. Yes, that David Brooks of the New York Times. And then what's happening in Alaska. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation from Jacksonville, Florida today, here at the Children's Cancer Center in Jacksonville, doing a fundraiser for them. 6 hours of radio today. Fun times. Y'all, I'm beginning to believe that the President of the United States and his team like to float trial balloons, that if there's enough outrage, they don't proceed down the path, and then they say, well, we never were going to do that in the process, and it discredits people they might not particularly like. So this is the Wall Street Journal here. Intel and the Trump administration are discussing the possibility of the U.S. government taking a financial stake in the troubled chip maker, according to people familiar with the matter, in a deal that could advance the president's America First manufacturing agenda while relieving political pressure on the company's beleaguered chief executive. President Trump discussed the idea, which is still in early stages and could fall apart, during a meeting Monday at the White House with Intel CEO Lip Bhutan, according to some of the people. Details of how such an arrangement would be structured are still being hashed out, the people said. News of the discussion was reported earlier by Bloomberg. Now, we all just piled on Memdami in New York for talking about seizing the means of production. This is communism. If the U.S. government is taking stakes in businesses, at best it's socialism. At worst, it's communism. And I have a hard time seeing this president engaging in socialist communist behavior, taking parts of companies. Remember, I mean, it was back during the Barack Obama's day that Americans were outraged by the U.S. government taking portions of General Motors. And it actually brought in a bunch of protectionism for General Motors, and it brought in a bunch of inefficiency for General Motors. Government control of companies is socialism. The president's base doesn't like socialism. Here's my guess, is the president touted something like this because, he does like to do big deals. It got leaked as a way to generate base outrage, so then the president's team can say, nah, he's not going to do it, and you shouldn't believe people like Bloomberg. And by the way, you really genuinely shouldn't believe a lot of the stuff at Bloomberg, because a lot of the stuff at Bloomberg, they're poorly sourced. They claim to have great sources, but Bloomberg, particularly when it comes to technology companies, and I shouldn't say that they've got a bunch of poor. In business news, Bloomberg is pretty good, but when it comes to technology companies, Bloomberg has a history of reporting stories that everybody else disputes, and then nothing comes about them. Very famously, they claimed that China had put microchips in computers from Apple and others, and even the national security apparatus of the United States came out and said, we have no evidence of this, and whoever you're citing doesn't know what they're talking about. Apple, the others, they all came out. Amazon said this isn't true, and Bloomberg refused to walk the story back despite no one having ever found these chips. So I'm a little bit cautious about believing a lot of the stuff that Bloomberg says when it comes to this, and the story originated at Bloomberg. But my gut is that this was a trial balloon leaked out to see how the base plays, and the base doesn't like the idea of the president engaging in the very socialism we're condemning the Democrats for. We'll see how this plays out. It is kind of interesting, though, that there are those, I think, in the administration. And by the way, there are some economists within the administration who actually do favor the government playing these sorts of roles. It would economically not be good, though. Now, we got to move on. I got to tell you, the president has come out and said no tariffs on gold after rumors were started there. Again, trial balloon floated, rejected by the base, rejected by the president. It has done a number on financial markets and precious metals. Swiss America has been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years, and they've been warning people about a secret war on cash. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash from the secret war on cash, you need their free report. It takes less than 15 minutes to read the report from Swiss America. You can get it by calling or texting 800-289-2646. The All-Out War on Cash includes digital forms of currency, and it's growing. So get the report, The Secret War on Cash, completely free. Just mention Eric, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK, or call or text 800-289-2646. Text the name Eric, E-R-I-C-K. Message and data rates may apply. Greetings, conversationalists. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number, well, we don't have a call screener today because I'm in a hospital in Jacksonville doing this. I'm fine. I'm here for a childhood cancer fundraiser for WOKV, my affiliate down here, and they've been kind enough to set me up with a place to do the show. So when I'm done with this, I can go next door and do the carathon for a few hours, and then fly home tonight. I got to tell you guys, everyone always laughs at me the times I normally drive to Jacksonville, Florida. So from where I live, it's 3 hours and 45 minutes to drive to Jacksonville. I yesterday decided I would fly because I knew that I had a bunch of deadlines I had to meet for National Syndicated Column. I had some business stuff I had to do. So like, you know what? Instead of driving, normally I would drive. If I get to Jacksonville, it's going to be late. There were bad storms, and we've had them. So last week when we were planning the trip, it's like, you know what? I'll just get on Delta. I'll fly down there. I can do all my work. I can land, and I'll be done. I can go eat. I can hang out, and I'll have done everything I need to do sitting at the airport and on the plane. And normally, again, I would drive, but this particular, the amount of stuff I had to do. So showed up at the airport, got everything done. The flight was a little bit late. No big deal. Got on the plane, finished up everything I needed to do before we even took off. 3 hours later, literally a 3-hour, 40-minute drive. And I decided to fly so that when I got to Jacksonville, I didn't have to do all the work that I had to do. I could do it there. Oh, I got all of it done. We never even left Atlanta. The plane broke. We sat on the plane for an hour. And I have to tell you, was flying Delta. And if any of you from Delta are listening, I don't have anything bad to say. Y'all, world-class customer service last night. This is one of the reasons I love this airline. There was a mechanical problem. So there was a problem with a part. And I can give you the details because the captain of the plane allowed the mechanic to explain the problem to everyone. That there is a part related to takeoff and landing that was not functioning. And they needed to see, this is a 757 jet. They needed to replace the part under the plane. It wasn't a big part, but it needed to be replaced. And when they replaced it with a part they had in the warehouse, the part they had in the warehouse didn't work. And when they pulled it out, they figured out what the real problem was, and it was the pins it was connected into were brittle, and they snapped. So it's a much bigger repair than they thought it was going to have to be. And when the pins snapped, there was no way to even get the part in the plane, and then they realized it wasn't actually the part, it was the pins that were the problem. And those pins can't be replaced easily. They have to take the plane to the shop. So they got us all off the plane into the concourse. And to their very credit, the captain and co-pilot hung out with the passengers. They were as inconvenienced as us. They had the opportunity to go to the crew area at the airport. They didn't. They stayed with us on the concourse. Everybody made the best of it. It was really good customer service. They allowed the mechanic to explain the problems. The captain was very apologetic. The crew was apologetic. They were super, super people, and it made for a very inconvenient trip. It made it better, and I was kicking myself the time. Dude, never fly to Jacksonville again. Stay up late and do your work and meet your deadlines that way. Next time, I will. I got to be back in a couple of months, and I've already sent a note to my assistant, said, I'm going to drive this time. I'm going to drive. But it actually, in all honesty, it was good because there was down in South Georgia, there was a terrible thunderstorm, and there was a wreck on the interstate, and the wreck was so backed up that it would have put me late either way getting to Jacksonville last night. But I made it. I made it to the hotel about 12:15 in the morning, went to bed, got up, did my show prep for this one, made it to the hospital, doing this show, we'll do that show, and then I'll turn around, go back to the airport, and go home and drive back to Macon in rush hour traffic this evening. So I'm sure you care. Now, I want to spend a moment on what I wrote this morning because I got some very nice feedback from you guys. And if you'll allow, let's listen. And again, I'm intentionally delaying talking about the Russia-U.S. situation until the third hour because that's going to be the closest time. I want the news to be able to build and develop because I'm sure there will be leaks and the like. So just bear with me here. But let me explain what's been going on in my life this week because it's relevant, I think, to many of you. So I went on vacation the last week of July with my family. The Thursday and Friday before, I participated in a carathon for the Aflac Cancer and Blood Disorder Center at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. Now, my flagship station, WSB in Atlanta, it's the most listened to talk station in the country. And they do this fundraiser every year. For 25 years, they've raised millions of dollars for this children's center, healthcare center in Atlanta. They've raised millions of dollars, and those dollars go to fund research into blood disorders. The Aflac Cancer and Blood Disorder Center, the number one sickle cell research facility in the country for kids. They fund child life specialists who come in and they teach the kids painting to help them with their mobility skills after chemo and all sorts of stuff. It's a really good cause, and they raised over $2 million this year. 3 days before that carathon, I had to go with my wife to her quarterly scan. She's got stage 4 lung cancer. It's genetic. There's not a cure. She was given 2 years to live. We are now 9 years into this fight. And she had her scan, she had her tests, she had her doctor's visit. Then I got a hotel room because she was sick too. So we actually drove up the night before, stayed at a hotel, left the kids home by themselves. They're old enough. Stayed at a hotel. Then I went and I did my show with you guys. And then I had to go get my wife and drive her home. And then 3 days later, did the carathon over 2 days. Today, I'm here in Jacksonville. I'm doing a carathon for the Nemours Children's Health Child Cancer Fund. This child cancer fund is different from the one in Atlanta. And in Atlanta, funds a lot of research, a lot of child life specialists, things like this. This one is so cool to me. I didn't even know it existed. But if families have to come because their kids are they've got cancer, they can help them find an apartment. They'll help them with their mortgage. They'll help them with a car payment. They'll help them with gas. They'll help them with groceries. If a child dies, they cover the funeral costs. They help with bereavement. It's a remarkable charity that they have here, and I think there are others around the country like this, but I had no idea. So I take my wife for her cancer battle, and then I got to do a carathon to fight childhood cancer. Now I'm doing another cancer carathon to fight childhood cancer tomorrow. I will get home tonight, and I will spend the entire day tomorrow with some friends whose wife died of cancer this week. Brain cancer, no less. I don't want to go into all the deals, but I think she lost some mobility. She was having headaches, vision issues. They found the tumor. She had surgery, radiation, all that. And you know, the bad brain cancer, the glioblastoma or whatever they call it. She declined slowly and then rapidly. So tomorrow, having done all this over these last few weeks, tomorrow I will be at a funeral, and then the graveside service is several hours from where we live. We'll be going to that. There are phases of life. So we all get married at some point. Most of us, we get married, and our friends get married, and we're in each other's weddings. And then we have kids, and we participate in each other's baby showers, and our kids grow up, and we all participate in each other's kids' graduations. And then our parents start to decline around that time, and we start going to each other's parents' funerals while our kids are starting to get married. So we're going to each other's parents' funerals, and then we're going to each other's kids' weddings, and then the baby showers for the kids of our kids. And at some point, many of you women will have the situation where you're invited to the weddings of the kids that you babysat when you were a teenager and you realize you're old. And then over time, we start going to each other's funerals as our numbers decline. That's a circle of life in community. Occasionally, the horrors of life intervene, like in our situation here now, tomorrow, where we're showing up sooner than expected at the funeral of a spouse or a child. And oftentimes it's the specter of cancer that kind of looms over all of this when you have to show up years before you should to the funeral of a friend because of cancer or because of a child. It's either cancer or something tragic and unexpected. Life can be short, it can be cruel, it can be hard, but there's a lot of joy too. A lot of good memories that will be visited tomorrow. Scripture says, Psalm 35 says, joy cometh in the morning, and people forget the line that precedes it is, weeping may endure for a night. It's the actual Psalm 35, 30, verse 5. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. I've noticed, and I've been on this week, and it's been on my mind. I know because of the carathon today and my wife's cancer and the funeral tomorrow, that it infuriated me the other day to hear Robert F. Kennedy Jr. say yet again that the doctors and pharmaceutical companies are they've got cures for the stuff that they keep secret. It infuriates. You know how often my wife is given a miracle cure from some crank, that it's an essential oil, or it's high strength hydrogen peroxide, you should drink it, or it's what people come up with, all sorts of cures, and I try not to be offended, but it does aggravate me at this point because they don't know my wife's cancer, they don't know the genetics behind it, and we've had to become experts on it. Jonathan Sackler was the co-owner of Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family that was in trouble for the opioid crisis. Jonathan Sackler died of cancer. You think the owner of a pharmaceutical company, if they had the secret cure to cancer, they'd give it to him? Richard Brewer was the CEO of cancer research firm Orexis, one of the top cancer research firms in the country. He died of cancer. Sendhil Sundaram was the CEO of Terns Pharmaceuticals, another cancer pharmaceutical company. Maybe it was just those, but the number of people who are high-ranking people within pharmaceutical companies who die of cancer? Maybe they were all willing to die to protect the secret. That's one of the conspiracy theories on Christianity is all these apostles. Maybe all the apostles were willing to go to their deaths to preserve the conspiracy that this guy Jesus rose again from the dead. Maybe they all were willing to die to keep the cover up, or maybe he rose again from the dead, and maybe these pharmaceutical companies haven't come up with a cure to cancer. Maybe what happens is that cancer is complex. It's multifaceted. People lose hope in a world that is so full of miracle cures and answers and prosperity, and they console themselves thinking, maybe there is a cure out there, but it's been covered up because the pharmaceutical companies want to get rich. They're so committed to it that even their CEOs are willing to die. And then these ghouls metastasize the grief with lies and conjecture and conspiracy theories. As a matter of fact, I saw the other day, Josh McCoon is the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party. And there's a guy who used to be involved with the Georgia Republican Party. His wife, this guy's wife, not McCoon, the other guy, his wife, on social media speculated that the astronauts of the Challenger disaster in the 1980s actually didn't die. She also believes we never landed on the moon, for that matter, but she also believes that the astronauts of the Challenger possibly didn't die. That people will believe all sorts of crazy stuff. The reality is life is actually pretty simple. We sometimes complicate it. Humans are really good at simplifying the complex and complicating the simple. It's what we do as part of being a human. We simplify the complex, we complicate the simple. It's our nature. It's part of life. One of the things I've learned is that the slow decline, this is one of the reasons I'm against assisted suicide, the slow decline, watching a loved one wither away, oftentimes horribly, it actually can be a ministry. It prepares you so that when they die, you're at peace about it. It's the tragic and immediate and sudden death where you never really get closure. It's a ministry to allow yourself to suffer the way people suffer as they wind down so that others can get closure. And what really helps is when you have a community of friends and family who are united, not over politics, but over a shared life. And more and more, we live in an isolated age where we don't have a community of friends who share life together. That's the nature of a church. It's the essence of a church. It's the essential nature of a church. Beyond worship of God is a community of fellow travelers through this world headed home to eternity. And as fewer people go to church, fewer people have a community of anything other than politics. And in politics, it's real easy to divide and break up over time. You see this. How many of you deeply in politics now have lost friendships over politics? It's hard to lose friendships over God and shared community. So I think in an increasingly isolated age, building community based on a shared life, not shared politics, is going to separate those who will find joy in the morning versus those who are still crying when the sun comes up. Now, no way to transition, but let me tell you about Vision Computers. If you're buying a computer, building a computer, Vision Computers can build the computer for you. They can save you some money along the way. What you do is you go to visioncomputers.com or call them at 404-COMPUTE. Tell them Eric sent you. You can save some money. Not only do they build computers, but if you are into managed IT services, they can build you a great computer and they can manage it. If you don't want to build a computer with Vision, you can still get the managed IT services from them. They can save you money. They can keep you online, and and your employees don't have to file emailed IT tickets. They can pick up the phone, call someone, and get them on the phone within 15 seconds. And it works. Vision can even remote into your computers. The managed IT service for them can probably save your company some money. You can get it as an individual as well for your computer for $199 a year. And tell them Eric sent you, you might save some money. Call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. What do you have to lose? 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Tell them Eric sent you. See if Vision Computer can save you some money, build you a great machine. And if you need managed IT, they can do that too. So I ran long the last segment. Sorry, Charlie. Not sorry, Charlie, the statement, but sorry, Charlie, my producer, Charlie, who gets mad at me when I do that. It's okay. We've got a lot more to talk about. When we come back, there's actually, speaking of community, there's a David Brooks piece, and yes, it is that David Brooks in the New York Times, the supposed conservative who's pretty liberal, but he actually wrote an interesting piece I read last night, stuck on that airplane, about what actually is Jim Crow these days, the new Jim Crow. And you know what it is? The propensity of progressive white people to alienate themselves from the rest of society. We're actually more segregated as a society today than we were during Jim Crow, and it's a class-based segregation. And I actually want to spend some time with it because he makes some profound points. And this is a guy who thinks La Resistance needs to challenge Trump and all of that, but he's self-aware enough to know that as progressives have segregated themselves from the rest of society, they have less and less in common with the rest of society, and therefore they cannot relate to or voice ideas that relate to the problems of the rest of society. And there's a great segue into the crime situation around the country as people on the left no longer relate to anyone outside of the left in upper income white neighborhoods. We'll be right back.